Guest here. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Oh, we've got
Hello.
city
Hello.
hall. They're saying hello.
Hi.
All right, so you can hear me. We are doing, Rusty isn't here today, so we have our able Jeff Adams doing the Zoom today. So we are testing things out here. And recording is in progress and we are ready to go.
Is good.
Okay, all right. Well, as you know, I'm City Councilor Nancy McCarthy, and I'm here with City Councilor Robin Risley. Do this all the time. I always forget last name. Robin Risley, I should know. I've known you, what, 21 years now?
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. So we are doing our coffee with the councilors, and we sort of disappeared there for a minute. Oh, we're doing it again. Okay. Well, this could be an interesting morning.
Yeah. Jeff adds a little.
So we have some people in the city hall here in the audience, and then we have some of you on Zoom. I'm going to go through to ask people today in City Hall what they would like to talk about, and then I will ask you all on Zoom what you would like to talk about. So let's get started. Eric, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I had some concern about stuff that was said at the end of the financial report during the work session.
Okay,
To talk about.
all right.
And Eric.
And I don't think I know you.
I'm Craig. I'm relatively new here.
Okay,
Kind of here just seeing what's going on. So I don't really have anything to talk about. I'm here to listen.
okay.
What's your last name?
Tulip, Tulip.
Oh, what a nice name. Thank you.
Okay.
Anglicization of a French Canadian D name.
Well, welcome, welcome.
There's no family name to Juno.
Dan likes stuff like this.
Well, Kirk, do you have anything you would like to ask about?
I'm just here to listen and trying to figure this place out since I'm living here now.
Well, once you figure it out, would you let us know?
I guess one question I have is the new city hall meeting I was at, I guess. Meeting number 2. I see a meeting number 5 on somebody's calendar, but where's 3 or 4?
Okay, you may be talking to, you may be seeing, I don't know, meeting number 5, is that the
Two projects.
School? Yeah, we've got
Yes,
two
two projects.
projects going.
We're ready for 4 and 5 at Canyon Beach Elementary
Okay,
and 3 for here.
all right.
Right.
And entering our,
We'd have 2 shots of Jack Daniels.
entering our chambers is Rex and Diane Amos. Welcome. Jan, what would you like to talk about today?
Okay, I would like to talk about City Hall also. Well, I have some questions.
Okay.
I won't say all of them now. And then I'd like to ask for a First Street bridge update, if there is one.
Okay,
And then also if there is one for Bruce. I'm not sure if you're ready to do that, but if you could, if you are ready enough, that would be nice for people to hear. And that's it for now.
okay, all right. Amy, what would you like to talk about today?
I am just here to see what's going on.
Okay. Did you bring your knitting?
I did not.
What we're doing is going through and talking about, asking people what they would like to talk about, and then we will come back and talk about it. So I'm sure you have something to say.
Well, rabbits and dark sky lighting.
Okay, rabbits and
Dark sky.
dark sky, okay. All right, we're gonna have interesting conversation again today. All right, Jenny, what would you like to talk about?
I don't really have anything, although an update on the fires, if anybody knows.
Okay. Yeah, we had kind of an exciting weekend, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right, Betsy.
Oh, gosh. Well, now that Rex has brought up dark skies, whatever he has to say, I'd love to hear it. And I'd like to put in my 2 cents worth too at some point.
Okay. And Betty.
I don't have a lot to talk about, but I am thinking about trees and some solutions. So I'd like to just run that by everybody.
Okay. Trees and solutions. Well, I hope we have some solutions there. Deb, what would you like to talk about today?
Hi, everyone. I was at the emergency preparedness this weekend, and I just want to bring up something from that.
Okay. And we have Rick, who is our emergency director.
Oh,
So
great. Perfect.
Rick, is there anything you'd like to talk about today?
I do have an update on the wildfires. If you guys want to talk about it later, when we have time, I can do that, or I can do it now.
All right, we'll do it in just a minute. How's that? And Will?
Oh, I'm just here to watch. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, why don't we do the fire update first?
All right, good morning, everybody. So a couple things about the fires updates. As you know, that us here in Clatsop County, we're used to a wetter climate and not being as high as risk of fire danger. But once again, it is a great reminder that we are at risk when it comes down to weather, and Mother Nature will tell us what our exposures are. So that happened over the past week or so in the county. There were 5 specific incidents that happened over that week, and it all had to do with our dry conditions that happened after a large amount of rain. And we had this couple of weeks here of great weather, but also we had those east winds, which were very predictable, and they dried out the fuel levels, and it put us at risk quite quickly. And so we had 2 fires near Saddle Mountain. One was called 98 Delta, and one was called the Park Fire. And right now, those are about 250 acres for the 98 Delta, and the Park Fire is about 110 acres. They are working with their containment lines right now, and they're in check. But if we have any kind of drastic weather or especially wind, those situations could change. Then there's the Middle Mabel Fire, and that was about 2.5 miles, and that was on another location in Clatsop County that was at risk. And what those 3 fires did specifically is put Oregon Department of Forestry and the county, it exhausted their resources. And you have to remind everybody that we don't have a lot of resources in this county to do those type of activities. And so when you have more than 1 or 2 events, especially that are regionalized, it puts everybody at task. When they had the Tillamook Head Fire, every single fire agency in the county were already working. 100% of them were active, and they were calling for resources out of the county. That's a big deal. And these are not that big of fires, but there was more than a couple, and it did impact us quite a bit. And so that's something to always remember, that we are at risk at this area, and we have to pay attention to the weather and respect it. And that also did lead to the fire chief working with the city in order to stop some of the bonfire permits that were put out with that happened on Friday. And so we have to respect, sometimes we have to make those hard decisions for people, and there's reasons that are surrounding them that happen. And then there's also the Green Gold Fire that happened. That was about 40 acres, and that's on the border of Columbia and Clatsop County. And those consisted of the 5 major fires that people identified. There was another fire that happened down in Arch Cape, and that happened up in their watershed. And one thing that was significant about that was those that the locks were changed out earlier this year, and they didn't notify anybody, and they didn't provide that information. And it took over 45 minutes for the fire district to get through those locked gates and to gain access. So what is missing from this county that we have to really respect is coordination and collaboration. When we don't have coordination of things like protected lands and working with our interagencies and having good coordination, and when locks are changed and communicating with everybody, at most times you don't see it. And then all of a sudden you have a fire that's up in a forest that could get out of hand and you can't get access. That was one thing that was significant. The second thing is also road access to some of these fires. If we don't have road access to some of these fire locations, that means that there's no chance that we can possibly get to these fires, and that whole area could be basically burned down without us having any impact whatsoever. And that's something that we're mostly afraid of. So road access to some of these remote areas are so very important, and coordinating and collaborating with our neighbors and private agencies and entities are critical that we maintain that. And right now our county is really kind of behind the power curve on how we do that. We're getting better, and but it's something that is identified. And you see what just happened over just some bad weather in a short period of time in our county. What I am proud of mostly is that we did have some pretty good communications with Nixle and Everbridge that went out, and we had an increase of our ability to communicate with the county. The county was monitoring all these events and sending out information to us as we went down with all these stories that were going down, and kept us updated. So I'm pretty happy about the fact that we're coordinating better with communication, but we have a long way to go to make sure that we keep these relationships with our neighbors, and we get access to these areas that are at risk, and we make sure that we keep it on the front of an important level, high priority.
Okay, Jan.
I wanted to ask Rick about the slash burning on Tillamook Head. Why was that allowed to go forward with the weather being so dry?
So those things all happen. First of all, those are private areas that happen, and a lot of those things happened out. Remember the 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks that happened in late October where there was a lot of rains and it was going down our regular weather patterns? That's why those typical things were happening with those slash piles in those forests. And so that's what people have to realize. Those people that made those splash piles and were trying to clean up their forest and manage them, they were actually doing it in a prescribed area, and the weather was typical. You know, what we saw in October was some good weather and good rains coming in. They all got permits from Oregon Department of Forestry, and then all of a sudden the weather changed, and then that's where the difference happens, where we have to pay attention to those weather changes quite drastically.
Eric, were you on any of those fires?
I did not know. I just barely got back in town. Right. Last ones.
Yeah, that could have been pretty difficult for you, I imagine.
Luke went up for it. I made one. Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was pretty good. I was down in the Short Stance Mainline one, and it went well there. The Tillamook Head fire, Duke was on. I heard it was more extreme.
Was it pretty intense?
Yeah, it was just very, very windy. And so breathing and visibility were horrific.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Your pictures were kind of startling.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. We're going to move on, Jan. Okay. We have a lot of things to talk about today. If we get back, get your question if we have any other time. Let's see. We had two people who wanted to talk about dark sky, Rex and Diane and Betsy. So let's do that. Rex, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I know we have a dark sky ordinance, but it doesn't seem to be followed at all. We walk at night, sometimes walk in the morning and sometimes walk at night. And there's so many lights that aren't downlit. And not only it ruins the environment and the health and the animals, the birds, it also just irritates the hell out of us, because you see these bright lights shining when you're trying to get your night vision going. You've been on the beach, it takes an hour to get it back. But there's one, the 7th and Oak, it's a rental, and it shines out bright, it's not downlit. Christian Conference Center has one that shines right at a friend's house. There's one at left, shines out. And, there's just so many of them that we just don't know why no one follows the regulation of our ordinance.
Have you gotten any dark sky complaints?
We've had a couple recently. It's tough for me to know where all of these are because I work during the day. So the best thing to do is get a hold of me or the police department and let someone know where these violations or something are happening. I'd be happy to take a look at them.
Luke is
call it in, or you can even email me or text me, and I can have the officers that are working graveyard check them out, because they have lumen meters that they can go out and see if they're legal, but also get pictures of it so that we have something to go off of.
Yeah, should I take a picture and send it to you?
Sure. And just give me the address so that we can follow up on it.
Well, a lot of the people just go to the store and buy a light bulb and they don't pay attention to the color. And
sure,
it's the white ones, the bright kind of bluish white ones that are so irritating and blinding. And the amber ones are really more effective as far as lighting is concerned for security. So I think people just need to be educated and perhaps through the rental agencies, because most of the houses are rentals. They always keep the light on at the front doors of those rentals. And if they were educated about the color of them, that
Yeah.
would be helpful.
I think that's a good point, the color of the light bulb. Yeah.
Also need to have a friend whose neighbors. They need to be careful of the, what they buy to put the light bulb in, you know, some of them shoot up.
Yeah.
Or sideways, you know, the ones you can angle and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not the people's fault sometimes, it's, you get confused between kelvins and lumens. You know,
Yeah.
Kelvin means color, lumen means light, but then they apply that to watts. And it gets, you know, it's
Yeah.
a whole new thing. And
our dark sky ordinance is a pretty complicated ordinance.
yeah. And the
Very
dark
technical.
sky Ordinance says that amber light is much more effective in catching the bad guys than a bright white light because it casts black shadows and they can hide. But actually, there's 1,000 facts about the dark sky. Just go to IDA and look them up. But did you know that Manzanita has a new dark sky ordinance?
No, I didn't know.
Well, here's a little bit of what they say.
Just give them,
Oh,
give them that.
I want to read a little.
Well, don't read the whole thing because we've got only 45 minutes and we've got lots of subjects. So
Okay, you shouldn't trespass on your neighbor's son. That's another thing. And they should be downlit completely. Outsides. They should be warm rather than daylight or light. Doesn't oh yeah, my main point was that anybody wants to get a fixture, you just go to Borland's. And Borland's has the Manzanita
yeah, okay.
dark sky ordinance on the wall. And it has beside it all of the fixtures you can use for dark sky. And it also has a nice little lighting board up there with all the lights in it. So you can test the light, see what's a warm light.
Huh.
Is it
It's a good thing to know.
Yeah, that's a good solution.
Yeah,
Instead
that
of
would be,
just, yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Plus, maybe we should bring it on as an agenda item just to remind everybody.
Might be a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe we could have our code enforcement ordinance officer talk about it a little bit too. That would be great.
Can we get the other thing out of the way fast so everybody else can?
Well, Betsy wanted to talk about dark sky too. So Betsy, what would you like to?
Well, I'll just quickly say that I like the idea that there'll be a little presentation about it because I'm not that familiar with the ordinance. And there are the people that buy those LED lights, you know, I think they're buying them for environmental reasons because they use less electricity, but geez, they're just awful. Anyway, and also is the ordinance isn't retroactive, is it? So if people got these bright floodlights on the sides of their houses and they went up before the ordinance went into effect, are those grandfathered in, or is there a way to think about just getting rid of them or tempering them so that?
Yeah. I remember when it was passed. I don't remember that it was grandfathered in.
No, there's no grandfathering clause in it.
Oh, good. Okay, well, anyway, I can wait till we get into it a little bit more. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to hold off on rabbits for a minute.
Good luck.
I'm going to hop away here. Eric, you wanted to talk about the financial report at the end of the meeting the other day?
Yeah, just like mostly just the end portion of the financial report, the amendment that the city manager added to it. I was just kind of concerned listening to Lori's whole presentation that the city's up this much money, we're flush with cash, basically lots and lots of positives in the funding. We've got extra in the reserve, we made all this additional money. And then Bruce's then follow up to that is we need to change this tax because we're not making enough money, this prepared food tax.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, those two things didn't rectify to me. Looking at the financials from like going back, not even that far to 2018 or 2019. Lodging taxes brought in over $1 million more each year for this year and last year. And that money is just kind of evaporated and gone into the funds for the city. But then the new food tax is going to has brought in 634 for the first quarter. And now it's like all of a sudden this money's kind of not enough. So that was my concern as to why we're looking at this after a single quarter. Why are we looking at even talking about changing this after a single quarter when we don't know what the calculation is for quarter 2, 3, and 4, considering lodging and restaurants are entirely different entities in terms of the way that money comes in for those.
Okay, a couple of things that I'll say, and then I'll ask Bruce to talk about it too. First of all, lodging taxes haven't quite evaporated. They have to, there's a certain requirement that the state requires you to spend 70% on attracting tourists to.
I was looking at the general fund money that's come in for lodging taxes.
Yeah. And again, it depends on which lodging taxes you're talking about, the 70-30 split. The reason that as I understand it, the reason we're going for we were concerned about the first quarter of the food tax is because we're looking at trying to finance the bonds. And we wanted to make sure that we had enough to be able to finance the bonds that we need. And we want to be able to finance the bonds in the first quarter of next year so we can get on with construction. But let me talk about that a little bit.
No, thanks, Nancy. Nancy's correct. It's about the financing. And what we're trying to do is to do City Hall without putting any cost burden on the residents and the owners. And so we were going to do that using the prepared food tax. And what we would do with the prepared food tax is use it to pay the debt service. And we were looking at generating $880,000 for the fire and for the city. And this was back, about a year ago. And when we looked at the first quarter, first of all, we don't know how the food tax is going to come in. And so we were using one measure, which is the TLT. And the first quarter, which goes from July 1st to the end of September, generally with the TLT, we generate 40%. And the 40%, had we followed that model, was $704,000. And it came in at $683,000. And so there was a concern whether or not we would be able to make, debt service payments and also to apply for loans without saying we have the amount that you're saying we need to make on debt service. And so I just, it was like, don't say anything and not be transparent or say something about what is going on with it and what a potential fix was. It's not like we can't move forward because we don't have, we only came up with 683,000 because, there is a way to fix that. There is a way to fix that, that we are talking about maybe $700,000 for the Cannon Beach Elementary. And we currently have 4.6 million because there is more TLT that we can use to use to bond for the Cannon Beach Elementary. And we don't need to raise the TLT, the PFT, but we might need to raise the PFT, the prepared food tax. And there are ways to do that without raising the 5% or the whatever. And I was just mentioning that, one possibility is that we're the only entity that has one that's not charging for beverages. And we did that on purpose, not to save, a tourist 15 cents on a $3 cup of coffee. It was because we didn't want to get challenged on that part of the tax. And so otherwise we would have included beverages. So I was just saying that is one way. So we do have options. It's going to be a council decision, but I think that we'll be okay on both projects But we are probably within 3 to 6 months of going to the bond market for both of those projects.
So I've got a question about the calculation that you've used. You keep mentioning the TLT calculation that you use. It's 40% comes in from Q1 and then 18 and so forth for the others, for the total 4 quarters. Have you talked to the restaurants at all to find out what do you guys make Q1 versus Q2, 3, 4 for those? Because talking to them, actually having a conversation with the restaurants will solidify much more clearly what would come in, as opposed to just assuming that it would be the same as the lodging, because lodging and restaurants, entirely different industries. Lodging, as the summer goes along, occupancy increases and prices increase. Restaurants, occupancy or number of tables sold, number of units sold increase, but the price stays the same. It doesn't go down in the winter, it doesn't go up in the summer. It's cost $18 for a burger no matter what. Versus a room can go all the way down to $90 or all the way up to $400, $500. So the calculation for TLT funds is an entirely different calculation than what the PFT would be. It's apples and oranges. So continually referring back to the TLT calculation is just disingenuous. It's you need to talk to the restaurants and come up with that. And after having talked to the restaurants myself, a number of them gave me some percent numbers of what they make in Q1, 2, 3, and 4, and those numbers compared to 683 for the first quarter put us above the initial estimate from the economist. So it just has me concerned that you're already, without having done any of those calculations based on the anecdotal evidence from the restaurants or waiting for an entire year, you're already bringing up, let's change the tax, let's change the tax, let's create even more of a burden on the restaurants.
Okay, it doesn't create a burden on the restaurants because
it does create a burden on the restaurants. Implementation is a burden on the restaurants.
Okay, there's also a 5% money that's returned to them like it is in the hotels. But regardless of that, they have a responsibility, we have a responsibility. When we're looking at we have talked to the restaurants, and we know that it doesn't do the same drop that's going to come out of the second quarter, but we don't know how much. You know, everybody's a little bit different. And so we're aware of that. And what we're looking at is we'll have to go probably into the third quarter before we have to try to get additional funds. And so we will have a better handle on that. So on what the amount is actually going to be. And this is about making sure that we have, enough to pay the debt service. And we've tied, not totally, but we're kind of tied for what we do with Cannon Beach Elementary to the City Hall bond funding, because we have, there's something called the cost of issuance, and it's pretty significant. And if we do, suppose we need another, $2 million or something to finish Cannon Beach Elementary, we would have a significant amount to pay on the cost of issuance. But if we put it on top of the amount, and it would be paid for by separate funds, but if we put it on top of the amount for City Hall, we save money on both issuances because we split that, the cost of issuance. So we're looking at the things. I never said that we needed to, as a matter of fact, we don't need to touch the PFT 5%, but I wanted the council to know that we are looking ahead on these kind of things. And that I think, depending on what decisions are made, but we're going to be okay. So that was all that I was trying to get, Eric. And I'm sorry if I came across that I was saying to try to increase it. And we understand the point about talking to the restaurants we have, but nobody could give us, we can't take from one restaurant what everybody else is going to do. We just think that that's going to be better for the next two. And it will probably come in about at the right number. But even when we started out with that number, we don't know how that's going to work in the current economy because the rates have gone up so much, construction costs have gone so much. So I just want to let them know, we're a business, and letting council know that we have flexibility. And so we're not in a bad situation, but we might have to make some changes.
So that all sounded like double speak when you said multiple times, we're fine, but we may need to make changes. We're fine, but we may need to make changes.
Eric, that's not double speak.
That's, those were the words that were in there, and that's the way I feel with the way that comment was at the end there.
Okay, well, I just tried to clarify your request. And I feel that I was straightforward. Maybe I wasn't. But I never intend to use double speak on you, Eric.
Okay, I'm going to, I think, Craig, did you have a question?
I hear these numbers, 683. Is that 683 for the city hall, 683 for the fire department? Because I understand that tax is split between the two. Or is that 683 total?
No, it's 683 each
Each, okay.
for this time period.
Okay, so
683
I
for,
hear these numbers for the total tax, the 5%, just multiply it basically by 2 for what the tax is bringing in.
Well, it depends what number is being put out, but generally, when we look at the our collection and what we're going to use, you just multiply that times 2.
Yeah, okay. That's just my question.
And it's supposed to come out to 880,000 each.
Okay.
Well, and I guess one of my concerns, if in fact beverage is included, is that different people will be affected, the bald eagle, sleeping monk, and insomnia, which now are not being taxed, other than if they have something prepared. We'll have to work with them in setting up some kind of a way for them to do the tax, if in fact that is something that we move forward with.
council will have to discuss that. So it hasn't been brought up to the council yet. So we'll have to discuss that. I'm going to move on to trees and solutions. Betty?
Well, I know that there's a lot of concern about trees in our city. And one of the things since we're a Tree City USA, one of my things was thinking, well, why don't we have a yearly goal for how many trees we plant, and just say, let's say 100. And if we planted 100 trees a year, then if we cut down 35, we would still be in the positive. So I'm just trying to throw out ideas so that we can lessen the concern about our tree loss and heighten our tree experience. So I just want to open it up for conversation, see what other people think about it.
Okay. Well, Jeff is here. He could talk. He's the tree ordinance guy.
Well, I think a lot of what Betty's talking about is probably public right of way and public lands trees is what she's talking about, because I think that's where the majority of the large tree removal permits are done. And, you know, quite frankly, a lot of that's done in areas where they need to thin forest, or our city arborist is responding to that. So, you know, I would just suggest if that's Betty is interested in doing that, takes it to the Parks Committee, and then they can look into that kind of matter if they want to set type of goals and stuff like that.
Betty, you're on the Parks Committee, right?
Yes, I am, but I just want to get a consensus of what other people think about it, because I don't know, it just seems like an easy solution to help us, because a lot of our older Sitkas are aging out, and we're going to be losing those. And I know it's going to be very traumatic for us. And so I was just thinking, why don't we just make an effort to just start planting trees, or every time we cut down one. I understand we need to thin them out, but there are lots of places we could find to plant trees. So I can bring it up with the Parks Committee, but I just wanted to get a feeling.
Yeah, I think the Parks Committee probably needs to bring a proposal to the City Council. So it probably needs to start at the Parks Committee to flesh out what it is you're talking about and bring a proposal to the council. I think Amy had it.
I did my one comment about that. I think it's great. But I don't know a whole lot about trees coming from Arizona and Southern California. But I do know up here that trees are there are good trees and then there are not so good trees. And I think we need to, like the spruce or the cedars versus alders, who a friend of mine referred to as weeds, and I didn't quite understand that because it was a tree, but okay. So I think maybe rather than just say overall plant trees is be kind of selective of the type of tree we plant, so they're good trees versus not so good trees, not bad trees, just not so good.
Dan?
I just wanted to say about the alders. The alders are often misunderstood and not appreciated, but they're the ones that usually after a burn, after a fire,
Oh, they're the
they
first ones to
come up
grow.
and they fix the nitrogen into the soil, which allows and encourages the conifers to be able to grow.
Oh,
So
okay.
we don't have conifers without alders. They all go together, just like we're all learning, everything is connected. The alders are treated like weeds, but they are very, very important trees.
Good to know.
So that's one point. The other point is, as far as our trees, planting more trees, what Betty brought up, I think it's a fabulous idea, and I hope the Parks Committee will work on that, and I would love to help with that. But we also need to always remember that the best thing we can do is not only plant the trees, but we need to preserve the trees, maintain the trees that we have as much as possible. So we need to strengthen all of our tree ordinances to help people realize how important the trees are to our community. And the canopy is really important to our whole area. So all that we can do to keep our trees healthy and keep more of them coming is very welcome.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, I'm moving on with Jan, you wanted to talk about City Hall, First Street and Forest Lawn. Let's go with City Hall first.
Hey, I wanted to bring up a concern about the City Hall site because I mentioned to a number of people that and they were concerned as well that we were told by Bruce in the city meeting that the employees of the city had agreed that the site, this is before we voted on the food tax, which is very important, the site would be here. And also when Bruce brought that to the council voted unanimously to have the new City Hall be here on this site. And then we voted as a community and we passed the food tax. And now it appears to some of us, now that we got the food tax and the site seems to be now not so sure. And I think what was told to us was before the vote, before the food tax was voted on, that the employees and the council did not want to negatively impact any of the neighborhoods in the community by putting a new giant city hall in their neighborhood. And that was one of the big reasons why this site was thought to be less intrusive to the main community. So I think if we're now talking about not doing it on this site, then we have to really question the validity of our food tax vote, because it would be voted on an assumption that this was going to be the site of the new city hall.
Well, it hasn't come to the council that we are changing the site of the city hall.
No, it was a very painful vote.
God, yes.
Every
After years of discussion, yeah.
we all negotiated, that's what we agreed to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a few people in town that would like to see us moved at City Hall, and they've been rather, loquacious about it. But so far the city council hasn't reconsidered the site, and frankly, I would be very hesitant to reconsider it. We spent countless meetings over several years of looking at different sites, and weighing the pros and cons and taking internal votes and you know, which one based on point system would you, I mean, we went through everything we could think of, and then we went to the committee, a citizens committee, and asked them to take a look at all the sites and come up with a recommendation. And to me, going back and looking at it all over again, it's done. I mean, we've decided on the site. This is again, I'm only one member of the city council. But that's the way I feel about it right now, unless somebody, I mean, I understand but every site has its problems. And this site has its problems, and every other site that we have looked at has its problems. And it could be the inundation, it could be the neighborhood response, it could be landslide potential. Every site has its problems. And this was the site that we decided yes, it has problems.
And we did decide it before it went to a vote, so.
And, you know, I'm not sure that the food tax vote was based on having the city hall at this site. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the site that's going to be. And I know that there's problems with it. And I know we have some things that we need to do in the design of the city hall to keep it as standing as firmly as we can, despite inundations, but it's the best we can do. So.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about rabbits.
Yeah, I hate to bring it up, but
Oh, you don't.
when we came here in 1977, there were wild rabbits.
Mhm.
So you can't say that these rabbits, you know, are indigenous to the area. They're feral rabbits. And it's kind of inhumane or mean to allow these rabbits to roam the area because they have trouble feeding themselves. Not like a wild rabbit. They're meant to be eaten, actually, raised as pets or to be eaten. So what I'm wondering is, if we're going to have rabbits here, why don't we make Beachcomber, Picosa, or any other rental agency put inside the door the rule or regulation about feeding animals? They'll feed seagulls, birds, everything else. We have the regulation, but I don't think anybody reads it.
Yeah.
Tourists coming here won't read it. And they won't know. Diane had to go next door to the Casa rental. 2 people were feeding 8 rabbits. And she had to tell
And
them
I
that.
said, well, haven't you been told that there's a fine for feeding the
Yeah.
animals? Oh, no. So there's no sign in the rebels that educates them.
Jeff, there's nothing in the ordinance right now, right, that requires them. Is there anything that we can do about that? Because I think it's a good idea to do that. I mean, people just don't know that they're not supposed to be doing that. Is there any way we could?
You can put it in the ordinance, but you could also just write a letter to the 3 or 4 property managers that own 80% of our short-term rentals. If he thinks short-term rentals are the only issue, if it's others like the hotels and the others, then we can write a letter to them asking them to put that in there with an example.
There is a fine, though.
There is a fine.
$500.
And I think
We could have the regulation, but nobody knows about it.
well, if you start getting fines, people will start.
Yeah, but the problem is if you don't know about it and who do you report? I mean,
The door of the, just like in a motel, you have rules and regulations. If you put it inside every short-term rental, just a fine. I call our next door neighbor. He's a beachcomber and rental. And he said, no, we don't have anything about feeding animals here. So he put a little sign, don't feed the bunnies. But having said that,
do you do anything, Eric?
We have a book in all the rooms that has like the rules of the property, and then inside there we have like a story about the hotel. But there, it's like maybe 8 or 9 pages, and one of the pages is the flyer, the PDF flyer for the don't feed the wildlife. That's one of the pages, because we just kind of look at the ordinances that get passed and things that are like super applicable to tourists that are coming to town. We're like, oh, let's especially if there's a PDF, it's worth putting in the top one of the book. So.
And
we got it in our book.
does it mention the fine?
I think so. I think it's the PDF for it. It's like a blue PDF that's got a big picture of an elk, and I think there's a bunny on it too.
Okay.
They just took the ordinance and pasted it inside the door to take care of it.
Mhm.
But anyway, we walk and they see the dusk and dawn, we walk 4 times. Well, you have these bunnies coming up to you and they're flapping their little feet, they're hungry.
Yeah.
They wouldn't eat or they're horny because one came up and started humping my leg. So what I'm getting at is, and this is for Jason. Can I trap these rabbits?
No.
If you relocate them to a safe place, you can relocate them.
You can drop them and eat them.
That's what I want to do.
To a safe place like your house.
It doesn't fall within the city and the ODF, it doesn't fall within their jurisdiction. So I could trap them and eat
On your own property, yeah.
but
You can trap them on your own property and eat them?
But you can't release them.
And you can
it means to relocate them because you put them out somewhere and then it's bad enough to have them in the city, but you relocate them when they're torn apart by some predator, you know?
You can relocate them to a place that, shelter for bunnies or something like that. No, but I'm just saying, if there's a specialized place, you can take them there, but you can't take them out into the forest.
No.
Okay, well, we're
Thank
supposed,
you, Jason.
we're supposed to have Thanksgiving dinner together. I don't know.
I saw somebody feeding an elk the other day or trying
Yeah.
to.
Oh,
Just was frightening.
all right.
I have a whole box of stuff about the elk and that the flyers that you did, don't feed the elk. I don't know if the bunnies are on there. They're down here in my garage. So I'm going to be handing those out to the hotels anyway. Because that's why they were given to me. So I'll look on there to see if there's bunnies and report back.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Deb.
The First Street, is there any more news on the First Street Bridge?
No. Still just going through the application process.
Still going through the FEMA application process.
Yes.
And you had a question about Forest Lawn, Jan?
I didn't know if Bruce was ready to give an update or.
No, there's still too many balls in the air.
Okay.
Yeah, the council hasn't gotten anything on that. I don't think the planning commission has.
Nancy, one question I have, if you listen to the Public Works meeting, Karen mentions that because TSP now is in the position to start looking at projects that she has 3 that she really wants to get going on. Bruce, do you know which ones those are?
I don't, Robin.
Okay.
I'll ask her though.
Yeah, because I thought it was interesting that 3 would be already being considered. I want to remind everyone that there is supposed to be public input when we go forward with TSP. So.
You mean the transportation system plan, right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Nancy, I want to make sure I can talk before why Rick is online. So
Go ahead. Yeah, you're next. Go ahead.
thank you. So Bob and I attended the emergency preparedness with MRC, DART, and CERT this weekend. And it was very well organized and it was a good attendance. Rick, how many people showed up to that?
We had 22 volunteers.
22 wonderful volunteers. And so, we went through all the training and everything. And the temperature was about 40 degrees and with no wind and no rain. And I thought, wow, what would it have been if it was 32 degrees with wind and rain? And we were dealing with patients coming in and they were laying on the ground and all of this kind of stuff. And, I don't know what the emergency would be. But, we're talking about water, food, shelter, no gas, no electricity. The reality check of all of that kind of sunk in this weekend because it took me 6 hours to get warm again. And you know, it was like, and then the fires and, you know, we lost our cousin in the fire and all of that, kind of the reality of all of that that really hit me because, and with climate change, I know we're talking about trees and everything, but you know, we're going to lose a lot of trees with climate change and there's could be fires that take down all the trees. And I don't know if denial is a wonderful thing, but I got a hit of reality check this weekend and it shook me. It really shook me. And I don't know if we're really prepared. I mean, Rick has done an amazing job. So I'm going to be right behind him, helping him and supporting him and getting you know, I want to take the Gazette and use this for a teaching moment with you, Rick. So anyway, because there's so much to learn about it. And you have all this information that I want to write about. In fact, you should have a regular column. As far as I'm concerned. So, and I think that we all need to wake up to this. And we're talking about a lot of stuff like, you know, but we could have a fire here in Cannon Beach that should sweep in. We do need road access. All those things that Rick is talking about, man, we better be listening to Rick more. Okay, so let's bring Rick to the top surface here and talk about reality because I'm a realist. And I've experienced reality. So, you know,
Rick
there's
for president, you know? Rick for president.
I'm, you know, I
Stop that. Stop that.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do. Anyway, 1,500 residents, 1,500 tourists, and we have a tsunami up there at the Southwind site, and the volunteers overwhelmed with all of this. And Bob and I were just talking about it. And you know, rains, floods, no connection, you know, our water supply, all of those. So Rick, I'm going to hand that over to you.
All right, it's all yours, Rick.
I'm going to help you, but I want to really have you be an educational source and let's do it in the Gazette. And I already wrote an article for this week. So we're going to be doing that. And that's going to be the launch off of this because everybody needs their go bag. And we're going to find out what the go bag looks like. And we need one for our car and we need one for our house. We need to be prepared, guys. So, and I'm telling you right now, reality.
Well, Rick has done a wonderful job since he's been here. And there was a lot of preparation before he came. And he has managed to organize it and reorganize it so it makes sense. And I think this council has, and I'm speaking again for myself, but I think Robin probably agrees that he's been doing a great job. We have a lot of confidence in him. So it's all yours.
I don't doubt my confidence in Rick. It's bigger than Rick.
Yes, it is. It's much bigger
It's
than
bigger
Rick.
than all of us volunteers that were there on Saturday too. So Rick, what do you have to say about it?
Well, thank you, but I appreciate that. But this is becoming a safer community. And I've always preached safe community, not just anxiety over these risks or anxiety over those risks. It's actually just being prepared and being a safe-minded community. And we are a pretty great example of that. I mean, even this meeting right here with Coffee with the Councilors, people are talking about safety and health and wellness in every vein that we're talking about. And we're very lucky that we have a community that's this organized and this input valued. The key is to keep it on track. And what the council's doing and what the staff's doing is what I believe is happening right now. It's moving forward. So it's really about a safe community and we're better off than we were in the past. But that's just because we've dedicated putting effort towards those works. So it's great to be part of the small community moving forward. And people from the rest of the county and the state are paying attention to what we're doing, but we do have a long way to go. And the state has a long way to go to keep up and to catch up to what's a good organized system that supports itself. Because right now it's pretty far behind the times, but it's something that can happen pretty quickly over the next few years. So.
All right, Rick Gray joined us late. Rick, did you have anything you wanted to talk about or wanted to say within 7 minutes or so? I don't see Rick's not talking.
Hi,
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to warn me if it's only 7 minutes. No, I'm actually just,
Yes.
I know. I'm just listening in today and enjoying the meeting and learning a lot about what we need to be doing next.
Okay, all right. Okay. Jeff, is there anything you would like to say about the housing council that you're on?
Well, if you haven't been to the website, there is a North Coast Housing Summit that's coming up December 6th that I think is across the 3 different counties along the coast. And so I think it's a good gathering and a great opportunity for people who haven't really been part of the affordable workforce housing conversation to see what the different areas are doing. It's being put on by the state DLCD and then others in the area that are working on these topics. And so that's your perfect opportunity to catch up. And then also on our website, if you just Google Housing Matters, you can also find all the collected meetings and information about what we're trying to do, at least in Clatsop County. We'll be meeting again in January to start back that regional conversation.
Is the housing summit, is that on Zoom or is it in person?
I think you can do both from my understanding, but it is in person. It's at Seaside Convention Center.
Okay, and do you have to register for that? Is there a
They
cost?
prefer that you register for that.
Okay, and who do they contact?
It's on our website, DLCD has a contact information on there, and I think the Zoom information is on there as well.
Okay, all right. So anything else in 5 minutes that we'd like to talk about? Diane.
I would like to ask about the Water Usage Act. I don't know whether this is an appropriate place to ask.
The what?
The Water Usage Act that's provided by the city.
The ion water, is that what you're talking about? The ion water. That would be something that Karen would talk about. Bruce, can you?
I can talk about.
Speak?
It doesn't allow me, it doesn't recognize my account number.
Okay, we'll talk after this meeting. I'll get you to somebody that might be able to help you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I've got to get on that myself. All right, anything else? You're going to
Ask Luke about code enforcement, if there's anything going on that way.
anything going on in code enforcement that we need to pay attention to?
I don't think anything comes to mind immediately. There's been, a normal amount of complaints and cases and stuff like that.
Anything unique people are complaining about?
No, there was a lot of stuff with the political signs and stuff like that. I think that one all went over pretty well and everyone was pretty close to compliance or able to get into compliance quickly. So that's the last big thing.
No,
Sure.
Yeah, it's been quiet.
Quiet. Be sure and get together with Diane and Rex though on the dark sky, because I know that that's an issue that's they've been going on.
2 go bags, one for the fire, one for tsunami.
What's that?
I was supposed to have 2 go bags, one for
Fire and one for tsunami.
tsunami.
I would imagine whatever you put in your tsunami is going to be good for fire.
Tsunami bags.
Yeah, yeah, but all your bags lined up in a row and have to figure out which emergency it goes where. Yeah. Yeah.
Good job. Well done. Well done.
Well, you have to think about that. What if you were in Warrenton when we have a tsunami or something? So you've
You
got
put it
to
in your car. You put a go bag in your car and put a go bag in your house.
Well, that's what I'm talking about is I want everybody to know all of that. And so Rick, I'll work with Rick and we'll get the list out there for him. Okay, Rick?
Yeah, but you don't want to be in Warrenton when the tsunami.
No, I
hits.
don't.
That's right.
No, but I don't think any of us can control where we're going to be at what time and when. It's like a
All right.
totally no control issue.
Well, on that happy note, I think we will end the conversation for today, go
And
into the
stay
kitchen,
in
pour yourself
denial.
another cup of coffee. And we will see you in December, third Monday, 10 a.m., December. And we'll see you then. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your bunny.